whatever. Chris Bonian.
Welcome. There's plenty of seating in front if you can't read the names, but we won't pressure anyone to come up. But thank you for coming out on a rainy evening. Good evening. My name is Christina Mosier. I am the co-president of the Eagle Hill HSA, along with my fellow co-president, Angelique Massey. This is my last year here with Eagle Hill, and then I'm also the vice president of the high school HSA. And I am pleased on behalf of all HSAs to be bringing this event to you this evening. This is our second annual Meet the Candidate Forum. Last year was our first. We had 4 candidates. This year we have 8. So that makes it even more important to get to know all of our candidates. With that, I will introduce here Jamie Travers, who will introduce himself and his role this evening. Thank you.
Thanks. Can everyone hear okay? Yeah, okay, great. I'm Jamie Traver. I've been asked just to fill in for this moderator who was originally scheduled to be here from the League of Women Voters. And I'm just going to review quickly how we're going to handle the format, which is pretty traditional. Lots of questions were submitted online for these 8 candidates. And because of the number of the questions and the number of candidates, I've done my best to try to package those questions into things that we can ask each of the candidates and cover a wide range of the topics. I think almost all of them. Not all the questions were able to be used. They had drawn straws to create the order that you see them in. They'll be doing a 2-minute opening statement beginning on the right, and then we'll reverse that in the closing statement, a 1-minute closing statement just before 8:30, beginning from the left. We'll hopefully have about 8 questions. Each of the 8 candidates will have 1 minute to answer. And in addition, afterwards, there'll be some informal time that if you have anything specific that you wanted to ask any of the candidates, please feel free to do so then. There is video recording occurring, and that will be available online. The candidates have agreed to not use that video recording except in its entirety, so they can't do any clips of it. And there should be no personal or private recording in the audience tonight. We're hoping that this will be a generous and helpful exchange of viewpoints. The candidates are asked to be specific in their answers and honest in the limits of their knowledge, both being qualities that voters appreciate. I have been asked to use Ms. and Mr. when referring to the candidates, and I'm now going to introduce them from the right. Ms. Marissa Joy Mims, Ms. Ann Bersani, Ms. Sarah Pinsky, Mr. Daniel Tulin, Mr. Daniel Seidberg, Mr. Gavin Goodwin, Ms. Anne-Marie Vosinas, and Mr. Christopher McKee. So let's begin with opening statements. I will add that there were some questions that perhaps could be answered in part, or I suspect oftentimes will be answered in part, that in the opening, your reason for running, what your relevant experience has been, particularly in education or advocacy, and what you might add to the board. So consider answering some of those things in your opening or closing statement. We begin with Ms. Mims.
Thank you. I am an educator in the Syracuse City School District. I am a design CTE teacher. I am currently the board president in the FM district. I'm also a member of the OCM BOCES Board of Education. I bring a lot of experience to the board. I bring not only local experience, but regional experience through my work on the OCM BOCES Board, where I serve on the policy and superintendent evaluation committees. I've also done work with the New York State School Boards Association, serving on their resolutions committee, the committee that develops resolutions to present to the legislative body. I have twins. My twins are 2019 graduates of FM, and I'm running in part for the same reason that I ran initially back in 2009, because of my children. I have one child who's a very type A personality and one who had a learning disability. And both of them were able to get the education that they needed at FM to be successful. So now I'm running to give back. And in the beginning, I ran because I wanted to be involved and learn about the process and help support our district. In terms of advocacy, I have met with our local representatives to advocate for our district, both the federal and the state representatives, as well as our local Onondaga County legislators. I believe strongly in public education. I believe that all children should receive a quality education that meets their independent needs. I hope that I have earned the trust of the staff and teachers in this district. I believe FM runs on relationships, so I'm very proud that I continuously reach out to our staff and our teachers and parents to form relationships with them and learn what it is that they need and expect from our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bersani.
Can everyone hear me? Thank you. My name is Ann Bersani, and before I jump into anything else, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for this event taking place. I think it's really important, and it says a lot for us that so many people are here to learn about what the 8 of us have to say. I am honored to have the opportunity to talk with you this evening. I've been a member of the FM community for about 8 years. I have 2 children, one attending Wellwood Middle School and one at Fayetteville Elementary. I've worked in higher education for the past 20 years. I've had a lot of different roles in higher ed. Currently, I'm a director for residence life and housing, which if anyone has ever lived on campus anywhere, that you have kind of an idea about some of the things that happen when young people are living together. So some of the experience that I bring is that I have a lot of facilities experience, and I know facilities right now are something that are very important to us. They're important all the time, right? But right now is a very pivotal time for facilities in FM. I was a Title IX coordinator, so with that, I was responsible for creating and implementing policy. I was responsible for crisis management, and I have a lot of mental health experience as it relates to my position. So thank you so much for being here and for giving me the opportunity to talk with you today.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Sarah Pinsky.
My name is Sarah Pinsky. My husband Todd and I have 2 kids in the district. Nate is a 7th grader at Eagle Hill, and Charlotte is a freshman at the high school. Todd grew up in FM, and we moved back here 13 years ago to be closer to family after living in Chicago. I got involved in the schools right when Charlotte started kindergarten, first as a room parent, then a committee chair. They really hooked me. I was HSA president for 2 years, a member of site-based team for 2 years at Enders and Eagle Hill. I've been on the district wellness committee, and now I have a Facebook group for class of 2027 parents. Professionally, I'm a vice president of partnerships for Kaboom, a nonprofit that seeks to create equitable access to places to play for kids. In my role, I oversee our partnerships with school districts, park and recreation departments, corporations, foundations, all to build playgrounds and sport courts so kids have a place to be active and be kids. And my direct experience is partnership management, fundraising, contracts, budgets, a bit of construction, and communications. And all of those, I think, are necessary skills that I'll bring to the board. I've considered running for a couple years. I honestly wanted to wait until I had a child in the high school because I felt for me that would help me understand a wider range of issues facing the district and make me a better, more effective board member. I love FM. I think it's a great district, but we do have areas to improve. And that's why I'm running, because I don't just want to talk about that. I want to be at the table to help find solutions. And that's so much what I do in my job. I try and find solutions, either through consensus building or taking in information and evaluating a situation and making a recommendation. I'm a very positive problem solver by nature, and I will bring that to the board as well. We don't have easy problems to solve. If they were easy, we would solve them, but I know that I can be a strong asset on the board.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Tulin.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. And thank you for having us be able to present ourselves to this community. My name is Dan Tulin. I've spent my life in service to my family, my community, and our country. Following a 21-year career in the Navy, I would like to serve as a member of the FM school board. My wife, Deirdre, 2 daughters, and I have lived in Manlius for 5 years. One child attends Eagle Hill, and the other attends Enders Road. I work for President Clinton and First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton, and the Speaker of the New York City Council following college. I joined the Navy as a helicopter pilot following the attacks on September 11, 2001. I served for 21 years with my last assignment in Syracuse as the commanding officer of the Navy Reserve Center, which included dealing with the physical security of the building, the personnel security, as well as all the infrastructure that went along with dealing with a 36,000 square foot building and the budgets along with it. I attended the University of Notre Dame, majoring in English, and received my master's degree from the Naval War College. I understand education is a promise our community keeps to prepare our children for the world, to help them learn about themselves and to provide support as they start down their path in a safe, respectful, and encouraging environment. I will support the development of a more robust, full-spectrum special education program, starting with the establishment of a subcommittee on special education. I will act as a tireless advocate for teachers, parents, and students so the educational community feels respected and provide a voice to those who feel unheard. And I will support new infrastructure long overdue to develop the district we deserve and bring new innovative ideas from districts both locally and nationally to make the necessary improvements to give our children the best education possible. Please vote on May 21st at Wellwood High School. Pardon me, Wellwood Middle School. It was a high school at one point, I guess.
Thank you. And now Mr. Daniel Seidberg.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank the HSAs for doing this last year, this year, and hopefully the years to continue. This was a long overdue, so thank you for that. My name's Dan Seidberg. I know many of you are here, who are here, so that's good to see. I sit here as the only FM grad that is on this up for election for the board at this year. I grew up here. I've lived here for 55 years. I went to Mott Road, Wellwood, the high school. My wife is an FM grad. We have 2 girls. My oldest is an FM grad. My youngest is in the high school here. So FM runs very, very deep in my family. And so I've been asked many times the question of why did I run for school board initially 6 years ago. I'm just finishing this year my 2nd term on the board. And the reasons has been consistent. It's my passion for this district. I know the history of this district. I know what this district has been, is, and can be. And we still have work to do to advance what we can do with this district. But everything that I have done in growing up here my entire life has been grounded around this district. It's why we came here and raised our family here after we got married. After I left FM, I went to Colgate University, then Boston University for graduate school, spent 20 years in law, and then transitioned to founding and building a software and communications company for emergency services. I started before I ran for the board with the FM Education Foundation. I spent many years raising funds for our teachers, for our schools, and that led me to transition into running for the board, where, as I said, I've served the last 2 terms. I greatly appreciate the community's confidence in electing me previous years to the board, and I would greatly appreciate the same going forward this year.
Great, thank you. Now Mr. Gavin Goodwin.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. My name is Gavin Goodwin. I've been a resident of, the school district. I technically live in Pompey, so don't be sad, but my neighbors live in Manlius. I have 3 wonderful kids who all attend FM schools, 1 at Mott, 2 here at Eagle Hill. And when my wife and I were moving to this area, she is a professor at Syracuse University, we looked at where we were going to raise our kids and where we were going to be able to put them in schools. We believe firmly in public education, and that is one of the real defining traits of this country and one of the great freedoms that we have. But unfortunately, not all public schools are equal, and in this community, it's very evident the difference between the functioning school districts and the less successfully functioning school districts. So we quickly settled, and after a big search in the area, we really singled in on this district, and this is where we wanted to be. I'm running for the board because I want to continue that legacy for future generations, and I don't want it to become complacent. My professional background is I'm a landlord. I am a residential landlord. Our facilities are unfortunately falling apart. Our buildings are rotting out. And if I had tenants in a home that complained of a leaky roof, I need to fix that right away. That's not something that can wait until cabinets are collapsing and causing dangerous situations for the residents. And we owe it to our community here, our students, our staff, and our faculty to be able to take care of them the same way. Communication's a real problem. Complaints aren't getting heard, and I will work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Anne Marie Fosinas.
Good evening. Thank you again for inviting us to be here in front of you. I am a career educator. I started many years ago working for the Syracuse City Schools. I spent half of my career there as a middle school math teacher, and then I became a professional development specialist. So I have experience in kind of the organization as well as what happens in school. I am also a parent. I have 3 children who all graduated from FM schools. Interestingly, one is now in sports, one is now in art, and one is now in music. So they received the wealth of an academic experience here at FM schools, and then went into those other extended things that sometimes so often get missed, and I think they haven't been missed here in FM, and that's really a key part of the success of the FM school district. I also serve on, I've served on some boards through my years. I currently serve on the board of SECNY, which is the School Employees of Central New York. That was the original name, and we've changed the name over the years, but I serve as a board member there. I believe in the community and having the community all come together and look at our schools and work together, keeping our students at the center, keeping our teachers supported as they keep the students at the center of what we do. Why am I running? My husband decided that I was crazy, and that's probably why I'm running. But I'm running because I think it's the right time. I've, lived here for 50 years in this community. I have enough experience that I think I can help with as we move forward making plans. I did spend some of my years in the school district helping schools write plans. So I've got that experience with having diverse groups of people who come with all good intentions to help determine what's going on in school. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Christopher McKee.
Hello, my name is Christopher McKee. I'm a senior solution architect for IBM. One of the reasons that I'm running for school district is sitting in the audience right now. She just took first place at Bishop Grimes Science Fair, and that's one of the reasons that I'm running. My daughter had to go to another school district just to be in a science fair, So I have a son who's special needs. He's at Mott Road, so she goes to Eagle Hill. My son goes to Mott Road, and I want to see both of them get the education and the resources that they need to excel within this school district. And I believe that FM has a lot of capabilities. One of the things that we're not very good at is communicating with the public and getting information out to provide clarity from the school board, from the superintendent's office, and most importantly, communication between the board and the teachers and the superintendent's office and the teachers. There's a lot of disconnect there. Last, the teacher's assistant contract is coming up for renewal next year. And if you know anything about our teacher assistants, they're pretty much the backbone that support our teachers and allow us to write that 14:1 student ratio that our teachers know is not to be true. It's 34, it's 24:1 kids, right? And if you go to the surrounding school district, these teachers' assistants make $5,000 to $6,000 more. If they go to Liverpool, they make $20,000 more. So that's very important to me. Last, I've been doing grants and proposals for almost 20 plus years in the federal market space. And last night I heard the board say a mythos that we don't qualify for these things when we do, right? We qualify for money for electric buses. Chatham, New York just got a large award. And so that's one of the reasons that I'm running. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to now begin the 1 minute interval answers to the question. I'm going to start off with something I think relatively brief. We'll be going through 8 questions. I've got some that have to do with optimizing learning, finance in the board, technology, and mental and social health. So the first question, and we'll begin with Ms. Bersani and then proceed to your left, is since 2014, the American Academy of Pediatrics has recommended a school day start time, ideally for 8:30 a.m. for middle and high school students. Should FM adopt this?
I'm sorry. So I know right before the pandemic is when FM started to really move and take some steps to learn more about school start time. As someone who lives in a house with a 13-year-old, I certainly understand the value in making some changes to school start time, but to be very honest, I am a data-driven decision maker. I would need to see a lot of data before making any decisions. I think, we can all have a thought or an idea. I can tell you what happens in my house in the morning, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's right for everyone. So I don't want to make any generalizations. I really think that to answer that question best, I would need to have a lot more data, including the data that the district collected. And I know it was right before the pandemic and things are different now, so it might take rechecking, right? And never, sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Pinsky.
I really appreciate this question, and I think this is an area where FM can be a leader among schools in central New York. One of the key topics that we're all prepared to talk about today is mental health. And so for me, this is a topic that actually connects directly to mental health. And so, yes, on paper, I am in favor of exploring changing the start times. But as I said in my intro, there are no easy solutions to any of our problems. And there are logistics and budget and financial ramifications to all the decisions that we make. But FM did start a study of local districts and the nationwide research that talks about the importance of school time. And we know that students are wired to do better. Older students function better with more sleep. So I would see this as one of many solutions we might put on the table as we look at overall student health and well-being versus one isolated problem to solve.
Thank you. Mr. Tulin.
So I think the first place to start was back in 2019, we all received a survey from the district asking us about what we thought as parents of this, some of the problems, some of the issues in terms of timing, of childcare, of getting to work, all of these issues. COVID happened, and that survey seemed to disappear, and this whole issue seemed to be somewhat swept under the rug. As was mentioned, this is from 2014. I've read a little bit about it in the news, and there is some pretty thoughtful research that's been done about the fact that older children, circadian rhythms change as they go through puberty, as they themselves change. So we need to go back to that survey that we were given and look back at each one of those issues that came out of that and investigate whether this makes sense for us.
Thank you. Mr. Goodwin?
Mike?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr.
Hi.
Yes, Mr. Goodwin.
Hi,
Mr.
Seidberg.
Snyder, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's a great question. This is not something that has been swept under the rug. This is actually something that we've continued to discuss in great detail. This is also not a question that can be answered in a vacuum. In a vacuum, you look at the data says what it says about pediatric development, and it says the obvious conclusion is yes, start times should be later. But there are a lot of implications that happen beyond that. And so all of these tie together. We are asking our students to do so much outside of the classroom: extracurriculars, athletics, get a job, volunteer. The later the school starts, the later school ends, the less time there is for that, and the less time there is for actual downtime for youth who need time away from school and obligations for their mental health and to spend time with their families. So it is a multifaceted piece. It is also a giant piece of the high school project that we're doing right now, because if we moved it later and we were trying to ensure that all of our students had lunch during the day to have a break, we could not feed them in the existing building. So we had to do the expansion, which is allowing us to do that so we can consider moving forward with this project.
Thank you. Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Vacinas?
Interestingly, when I was a middle-level teacher, I was on a task force for the Syracuse City Schools, and we looked at the research. We looked at the research about brain development, about ages of children, and we were a middle school task force. I would want to do the same thing that we did then, was to look at the research and see why it makes sense. What we found then was that there was some brain development that patterned a middle schooler with a baby needing a little more sleep in order to get the information. I don't know that that's still true. So before I would say, yes, I think we should do that, or no, we don't, I think I would need to relook at the research and see how it would make sense, if it does make sense for children in this school
Thank you.
district.
Mr. McKee?
So the simple answer is yes. Clearly, good night's sleep is tied to good mental health. So I believe we should move to a later school start time, or if we're not going to do that, do what a lot of school districts have done in very progressive areas, which is allow to set up places that kids can go take a nap during the day. You know, they don't always have to be busy and active. They can go lay down for 15, 20 minutes, catch a nap, and get back right at it. So,
Thank you. Ms. Mims?
This is an issue that the board did a lot of study on. There was an expert that was brought in. He met with board members and stakeholders in the community. The information that I have right now leads me towards for supporting this late school start times, but it's something that has to be done with very careful planning, and it can't be done just at FM. We have to consider other school districts around us, because our students compete in athletic events with other schools. There are daycare issues for parents that we have to consider. We also have to consider the schedules of our teachers. So I think that it's an issue that I know it's an issue that we're still looking into as a board. Sometimes we have issues that come up, and there may be a lull when people think, oh, they're not doing anything with that. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of work and a lot of research that's going into a particular issue. And as Dan said, we also have to look at our facilities and make sure that we have the space available to accommodate a change like that. So that is something that we still have, that we're looking into, and I do think it is a good idea.
Thank you. The next question: what short and long-term proposals do you favor to ensure access to and financing for a swimming pool for school sports, physical education, and community use? We'll begin this with Ms. Pinsky.
What I appreciate about the effort to bring a pool to the community right now is that first it started with a really energized group of parents who saw a need for their students, for their kids, for the community, and they rallied around it. And they came to the school district, appropriately so, and now it's broader to involve the town. And so my short term is to continue to work with the stakeholders who are at the table. It's not just the group of parents in the district, but we also have the town of Manlius and surrounding towns, all trying to approach this from a collaborative problem-solving direction. There are enormous budget, space, resource implications to having a community pool. I am generally in favor of continuing to find a path forward. Again, no easy solutions, but I think the short term is continuing down the path that we are so that we can include it in our long-term plans if that's what makes sense for the district.
Mr. Tulin.
I'm a huge proponent of the pool, both short-term and long-term. This is a DEI issue. There are children in this district that don't get access that other children get. And one of the places they should be able to get that access is at school. This pool is 5 decades late, in my opinion, having just moved here and discovering it when I got here. It was very disappointing to see that there wasn't that kind of infrastructure here. We have a very small debt ratio right now to our budget. We're only looking at 6% of our budget, less than 6% of our budget is a debt. We could easily bond out and partner with other districts like ESM, who doesn't have a pool either, and look for solutions in which we partner with the other districts in the area as well.
Mr. Seidberg.
Well, this is one of those issues where passion and practicality run into each other in a very difficult manner. From a passion and personal perspective, it is something that I absolutely support. Both of my daughters grew up swimming. We did the drives to West Jenny, to Kaz, to JD, to Oswego. My oldest daughter won 5 sectional championships here at FM and still swims in college. So we know the need and the desperate need greatly. I have invested a lot of personal time. I traveled to Nashville to attend a USA Swimming conference on how to do this. The reality is, in this district, we have a lot of facilities needs, and we're up against what's known as the maximum cost allowance in most of our buildings that is serving as a blocker to be able to just finance and build a pool. So I think that the community approach that's being taken right now with the town of Manlius is the most practical and most feasible way, and I hope that that's something that we can find a way to help move forward.
Thanks. Mr. Goodman.
Very much in favor of a pool. I also want to see that grow into an entire community center with field houses and other facilities. There are a lot of parents on Saturdays leave our community to go take their kids somewhere else to use these facilities. That's also taking money out and putting it into their cafes and their restaurants, which is wonderful to support other communities. But a community center here with a good aquatic center, with a field house, is a boon for the community and for this entire environment. It absolutely is a DEI issue. I grew up out west where a community pool was one of the great equalizers, socioeconomically speaking. There were kids who had pools in their backyard, and there were kids who didn't know how to swim. But everybody could go to the community pool. You could put a quarter in your swimsuit, walk down, and go take a swim. This needs to absolutely be a community involvement. It's something that can hopefully be self-sustaining. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fosinas.
Yes, I voted yes many, many years ago, probably 50, when you said 5 decades, but I did vote yes for a pool at that time. It didn't work. I do believe that we need to look at that as a whole community and see if we can figure out, it's a balancing money. It's not just money to build the pool, it's money then to support the pool throughout the years because there's always maintenance. But certainly it would be great. I wish we could do it instead of the, what's the thing coming? The aquarium. Maybe we can ask for their money and then we could build a pool here. But I would support looking at it as a whole community.
Mr. McKee.
So 2 weeks ago, one, I'm very supportive of pool. My son loves to swim. He swims at the Y. He has a green band. He's really fast. So last week, Town of Manlius had a development corporation meeting. There was a lot of opposition to it. I made a 45-minute video, posted it on Family Manlius Parents, a Facebook group, and on Nextdoor. You can go watch it. The benefits of that development corporation that could bring into our community and the funding for the pool. Like, we could probably get 50% of our funding from private fundraising and from grants and other resources that would help us build that pool, and then the maintenance afterwards would be subsidized through memberships, leasing the pool out for swimming and things of that nature. So I'm a huge proponent of the pool. I think there's a way to fund it. We just have to do it as a community. And by the way, Watertown, New York has 5 pools, and they have less of a budget than us, so.
They are Watertown, though.
That's true.
Ms. Mims.
Thank you. In terms of communication, this was an issue that we definitely could have done better communicating to the public about what it would take to have a pool, a school pool in our community. We have to look at our overall facilities and the critical infrastructure needs that we have. We also have to look at state aid. And where we are now, the pool wasn't fitting in with that. I did make inquiries of ESM and Casanova as to whether or not they were interested in building pools, and they are not interested in doing it at this time. I recently attended the meeting that John Deere, our town supervisor, held for a small group of people to talk about how we can make this a reality for our community. One of the things that I suggested was making sure the right people were at the table. Someone who has expertise in inclusion. Parents from, even though ESM is not interested, participate as a district, parents from ESM, parents from ESM, from FM, parents of kids of different ages, seniors, business folks, having them all at the table to build this for our community, because this could be something that brings our town together.
Thank you, Ms. Pisani.
Thank you. So I just want to make sure I understood the question right. It included long and short-term proposals for a pool?
What short and long-term proposals do you favor to ensure access to and financing of a swimming pool for school sports, physical education, and the community?
So I think there's 2 different pieces here. I think having access to pools now, today, is one part of that, because that's a short term. And then the longer term is people in the community want a pool, right? You just heard 7 of my newest friends saying, we all want a pool. So there's so much community support for a pool. Now it's a function of finding the way to make it happen. Collaborating with the town, collaborating with different towns is very important. But I think for the short-term solution, to find places to swim for our children is also something that we can, I know in the past we've used Casanova College, we've used Lemoyne College pool, we've used other pools in the area in the short term, and I think that maybe one step toward that short-term solution would be finding out other ideas from a diversity of thought in the community to solve that problem in the short term.
Thank you. The next question, what specific restrictions do you recommend or favor of cell phone use in elementary, middle, and high schools, given the concerns about their effects on learning and the mental and social health of our students? We'll begin that question with Mr. Tulin.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Repeat it?
Yes, please.
Yep. So what specific restrictions do you recommend or favor for cell phone use in elementary, middle, and high schools, given the concern about their effects on learning and the mental and social health of our students? So in other words, should cell phone use be restricted, as I think it currently is in your high schools?
That is an extraordinarily interesting question. Cell phone use has been shown to be detrimental by young children, adolescents, but at the same time, as a lot of our parents work, I'm one of many, a couple that work, having the ability to communicate with our children is also important in the middle school and especially in the high school. This is in the elementary school, my youngest daughter's already started using a watch and trying to communicate with her friends. We do have to understand these devices are how our children communicate now, how they interact with one another. It's different than how we interacted with one another, but it's how they interact with one another. So a lot more time and effort has to go into deciding this than just a 1-minute answer. It's about a 3-hour answer that we'd have to go a lot more research about because it's just not that easy.
Thank you, Mr. Seidler.
Yeah, this is certainly an evolutionary issue. I think that the answer is not a one-size-fits-all to our 3 schooling levels. I think that at our elementary schools, we don't need to have cell phones in the schools that are used by the students while they're there. There are still phones that can be called and can be reached in places where students can use them. At the very most, it would be a designated place where a student could perhaps go at a particular time of the day to check if they so needed. But I think that they are not needed in the elementary level. They are minimally needed at the middle school level. But as we get to our high schoolers, we're soon to send them off to college, many of them, not all of them, and to trades and to other professions where they need to live on their own in a different manner than under the guidance of a school and the in-home guidance of their parents, and they need to learn how to manage devices and access. And so they are not appropriate in our classrooms, but they do need to have flexibility of use of the devices in school when not in our classrooms.
Mr. Goodman?
Phones aren't going anywhere. They are a part of technology. Many of us probably remember first time we got to use a laptop on an assignment, and that felt revolutionary. We need to teach our kids to responsibly use this equipment, but the most important part of this question, I think, is the mental health issue, and it's damning. It's not good what phones can do, and the amount of cyberbullying and things that can happen. It is 1 minute is not enough to really lay this out, but it's something that requires a lot of care and concern, and the guiding principle here should be the mental well-being and the emotional health of our students and the community, and that's how we need to design this and many other policies.
Ms. Vosilis.
I remember a workshop that I did a number of years ago where they told us we were going to have calculators and computers on our wrists, and we all said no. Well, we all have them now. I think this is a big issue. I think the cell phones can be used in the classroom when teachers work them into their lessons in the high school. I do not see the need for them in the elementary school, in the middle school. We still are connected by a landline that if parents need to reach their children, they can do that way. But I would like to work with teachers and see where they think the whole issue is going, because they know what's going on in their classroom. It might be something that makes sense for them. It might not be, and if we set those parameters up. I think the mental health issue, though, is something that is critical. That does require professionals in on our conversation as we look at that.
Mr. McKee?
So again, this is a topic that you can't answer in 1 minute. As a senior solution architect for IBM, I understand this phone has more computing power than the very first computer that was ever used. It now has artificial intelligence on it, right? So these kids have access to more data, more information, and they're constantly bombarded. So yes, that can create mental health issues, but if you educate your children at a young age, and at the youngest age, that how to use the phone, how to use it responsibly, educate them about cyberbullying and all these other things that they are gonna face once they pick up this device, and that it's a tool. It's like a hammer to hit a nail. You know, as long as you provide that education to your children as young as possible, both at home and through the school district, I don't see any reason why cell phones shouldn't be integrated into our kids' learning process, especially once we start using artificial intelligence. They're going to be critical for that.
Ms. Mims.
So as a middle school educator, I deal with cell phones every day, and they can be quite disruptive, but they have also been part of the learning process. I've seen that there's an increase in bullying and mental health issues with my students because they have that instant reaction, and they're able to say things very quickly on the phone to a lot of people. So it causes a lot of problems. I think, generally speaking, I don't see the need for cell phones in elementary school, but I would like to find out why people would consider them in elementary school. Perhaps there's something I'm missing. So before I would rule that out, I would like to know the other side of that. I think we need to start in elementary school with internet safety, using our CSIROs and also our mental health providers to educate our parents and our students from elementary, middle, and high school. In middle school, I think there are specific times the kids should be able to use phones. We use it sometimes the reward system in our school. We also use it for educational games with our students. High school, we should have taught them by then how to properly use cell phones.
Ms. Bersani?
Thank you. So for cell phones, I think there's a time and a place. I think that if you can't beat them, join them, right? So I think that the appropriate use of technology, and for me, it's not about a cell phone, it's about social media. And for me, my interpretation and my observation of where things kind of go sideways often is around social media and sharing information online. So there is the back and forth between students, but there's also real danger. So incorporating into the curriculum, at whatever level it is, at the appropriate information for that level, I think is a good place to start with incorporating that kind of technology.
Ms. Pinsky.
I'm not going to be able to provide a really clean answer in 1 minute. My organization has just spent the last 2 years building playgrounds in Uvalde, Texas. And for many of the parents there, their kids having a cell phone in the classroom was how they were able to communicate with them. And so I answer this question with a lot of conflict. I understand intellectually everything everyone has said about restricting them. But I'm not in a place where I could say, absolutely, we don't need them here. I wish that I could, but I can't. So yes, restrictions in hallways, restrictions on use, recognizing that they are part of our kids' lives, and we have to teach our kids how to use them responsibly, how to use them to lift people up and not tear people down. But I don't know that I can say, yes, we should restrict them here, here, and here. I think I need a lot more than a minute to answer that.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Mr. Seidberg. What specific further initiatives in mental health evaluation or support, if any, should the district consider in the next few years?
Number one, we need to listen to our students more. It took us a very long time to start to survey our students, to actually get their perspective on their needs and their understanding of available resources as opposed to our beliefs of their needs and their understandings. And we need to listen to them much more so that we can meet them where they're at. In terms of more hyper-specific initiatives, I've spoken on this many times in my time on this board, that I think that we need our teachers to convene and to work within the buildings on helping to define from their perspective reasonable, meaningful homework policies, so that homework is truly actionable work and not work that is taking every waking hour of every day for some of our students when they leave these buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Koopman.
Students' mental health, all of our mental health is paramount, especially particularly our students. They will not be, all I want for my kids to be is good adults, decent human beings. And without mental health, that's a really hard thing to be. Every resource and every single available thing needs to go towards this. I don't know all of them. That's why we have professionals. That's why we listen, absolutely listen to the students, to the teachers. In talking to some teachers, one of them brought up the point of AP classes, and there's a real culture here of kids overloading their schedules. The fact that we allow our high school students to skip lunch to take a class, I think is maybe not in their best interest. Maybe. What we need to understand is that our ratings might go down in the interest of helping our students. Offering the right number of AP classes or the right number of expensive whatever or high pressure whatever that might be that gets us a good rating, that gets us a blue star, if it's sacrificing our kids' mental health, it's not worth it.
Ms. Fosinas.
Again, I think that teachers, school staff, parents should all come together and really evaluate what the issues are and then try to come up with a plan that will address those issues. I think the point that was made that we don't always listen to our students. We need to hear what they're saying. We need to hear what our teachers are indicating and make sure that we have the supports in place, enough other professionals that will handle mental health issues at each of the schools. Sometimes we don't do that in the elementary level, sometimes not even in the middle school level. We wait until the high school, and I think we need to evaluate each school, each grade level, each school community individually and see what needs to happen.
Thank you. Mr. McKee.
Can you repeat the question
Yep.
in its entirety?
What specific further initiatives in mental health evaluation or support, if any, should the district consider in the next few years?
There's so much there. So I'm kind of gonna go piggyback on Dan Seiberg's answer here because this is not a one-shot question. One, we don't have enough mental health professionals in this country for even the amount of people in this room. So we need to basically get with the students, make sure that we're listening to them, and not just at the high school level, but at all levels, making sure that we're interacting with them continuously. And most importantly, the mental health of our teachers can sometimes affect the mental health of our students. If teachers having a bad day, the kids may have a bad day, and teachers can't have a bad day. So we need to make sure that we provide benefits and outlets for our teachers so that our students can also have those benefits and outlets. Again, it's not a simple question. I don't think I can give one definitive answer.
Ms. Mims.
So 3 initiatives that I think that we should pursue in the near future. 1, I think we need to take a look at employee mental health. We need to make sure that we have surveyed all of our staff, find out what the needs are, and develop programs and support for students. We need to advocate for changes to the federal family and medical leave, as well as to the New York State family leave, because those programs do not support teachers who may need to take maternity leave or be caretakers for their families. Second, I think we need to consider cultural factors in mental health. We need to make sure we understand the communities, the stakeholders that are in our community, and how their religious or cultural views affect mental health, their access to mental health services. Third, we should have a coordinator for mental health and DEI. Those 2 things are very closely tied, and we need someone who is a point person who's going to be able to communicate with our stakeholders and is going to be able to make sure our initiatives are fully developed.
Ms. Bersani.
Thank you. So, mental health in 1 minute or less, go, right? So, I have been a trained mental health first aid facilitator as part of my role in various roles at various universities. I think that the most important part when looking at new initiatives or introducing something is that it needs to be meaningful, it needs to be timely, and it is 100% dependent on the population that you're talking to or addressing. So asking teachers to do mental health work in the classroom probably isn't the right idea, but fleshing out what does it mean to be supported in mental health for each individual student from different cultural backgrounds, from different socioeconomic statuses. That is what we need to get to first before we jump into throwing anything else out there.
Ms. Pinsky?
So first I'd say I think we need to start having some honest conversations about the role of the district as it relates to mental health and families, and understand what's appropriate for a district to address and what belongs with families and where we should be collaborating. I think that Dan was right. We need to understand what's going on with our students and our families and our staff. And I think on the board, that also entails getting not summarized or sanitized results, but actual results, so we truly understand what the pulse is of the community. Dan specifically mentioned homework. I have to tell you, elementary, middle, high school, that's a factor. As I watch my kids struggle sometimes, I know that has an effect. We've also talked about the fact that there's no lunch hour. How about giving freshmen a study hall or a lunch hour? Help our families and our kids make a good decision for them. I would also say education is critical. We need to make sure that we are continuing to educate parents about what they need to be looking out for and what they can be doing.
Thank you, Mr. Tulin.
So the question was, what specifically are we going to do? Near and dear to my heart is the need for better resources for special education. A child who's struggling academically is a child who's struggling with mental health. I have one at home, and I listen to her tell me how stupid she feels because for 3 years, we didn't get the services we needed. We struggled, we fought, and we got them. But the fact that we have to struggle and fight is unnecessary. It should happen, and it will help with mental health in this district if we get the kids who need the help academically, the help they need, and we need to do it quickly.
Thank you. We're halfway done with the question time. The next will be to Mr. Goodwin. True or false? The literacy curriculum of the district's elementary and middle schools is no longer supported by the science of reading and is overdue for an update.
I'm not sure that I understand that question.
So, in other words, the reading curriculum,
Okay.
reading and writing, there has been a lot of discussion nationally that curricula were developed and promulgated without close questioning, and that now curriculums, particularly the famous one out of the Teachers College at Columbia, have been looked at more carefully and thought that their view of how to teach reading has little scientific support, and that we should be switching back to a more phonics-driven reading approach. So this particular correspondent suggested, I don't know if it's true, that this district is behind compared to other districts in the area in adopting the new revised reading curriculum for elementary and middle school. Oh, sorry, for elementary.
Thank you. I think I understand the question now. If the curriculum's outdated, then yes, we need to look into seeing if that's in fact true. I don't know. This is something that I'm not familiar with. But we were just, as we were chit-chatting before, we were talking about math, and there's the new, okay, I was gonna say, that's not a minute. There's the new math, and I have a learning disability called dyscalculia. I was not diagnosed until my final semester of graduate school, which you could argue is maybe a little bit late to be diagnosed with a learning disorder. My last semester of school ever, I was a father of 2, and 1 on the way. So the new math that my kids are teaching, when they explain to me how it works, I go, this is amazing. I can actually do long division. I can do these things. So if there is a way that can help kids who are struggling and feel dumb and feel like they're not getting it, like I did growing up, by all means, embrace that. I don't know if this information that's in the question is accurate. I truly don't know, but it's worth exploring.
Thank you. Ms. Fosinas.
I would not be able to answer this without talking to the teachers in the district to get their sense of, is it working for all students and should something be adjusted? I have seen the pendulum go from phonics only to swing to whole language, to swing back. In my experience as a teacher and as a parent, I think it's always about a balance, trying to see what the child needs and then trying to provide that. But I would not venture a guess at this point unless I talk to the professionals who are using the curriculum and even the math curriculum, but the professionals that are using that curriculum on a daily basis.
Thank you. Mr. McKee.
So my daughter just was in the book challenge that was ran by BOCES. Her team made it all the way to regions. She's an avid reader. I think that the teachers that she had inspired her reading, and she's insatiable. She probably reads at least 2 to 3 books a week. So as far as the data, I honestly would want to hear from the teachers in our school, because no curriculum should be done in a vacuum, and I think the best individuals when it comes to new curriculum should be evaluated, studied, and then recommendations provided by the school teachers who are going to have to teach it. Like, I'm not going to be in the classroom teaching this new method. They are, and I think they're the ones who can probably provide the best answers. So.
Thank you, Ms. Mims.
When standards change or when research develops new approaches to learning, in FM, what we do is we do further research. We look at what's available. We don't rush into anything. We make sure that we are providing our students with the absolute best services. So I have not heard that our literacy program is based on outdated science. I would be very surprised to find that out, because I have a great deal of confidence in our educators and our administrators in this district. I would encourage the person who actually had that question to reach out to their building principal to ask for further information about that, because I guarantee you, if there is a change in standards, there is a group of people, teachers, administrators, et cetera, in the district who are working to make sure that we meet that standard. We have presentations at our board meetings when changes happen. For example, there were changes to the science standards, and we had educators who came to the board meeting and explained what those standards were, how they affected our students in the classroom, and provided that information to the board so that we could support them moving forward.
Thank you. Ms. Bersani.
Thank you. So I'm not sure that I can answer this in a true or false way, but through conversations with multiple educators in a couple of schools, in my own experience, it is my understanding that our reading curriculum needs a little bit of love. There's not a one-size-fits-all. There's high-achieving students who walk into school and know how to read already. And then there's other students who aren't reading yet at the end of kindergarten. So working on a curriculum that is able to work with individual students' needs, and when it isn't, to have the appropriate resources. I think that that's what's important with such a foundational subject as reading.
Thank you, Ms. Pinsky.
Yeah, like I think that I might have some anecdotal observations from watching my children in the district, but as a board member, this is quite simply how I'd approach the question. This is not a question I'm able to answer right now, and I need information to be able to do so. And that information is going to come from several different sources. I am going to start with teachers. I'm going to start with the teachers and administration at the elementary levels. Educators across the country, what are other school districts doing? What are the best practices? What do we see in the field of education as standards change? Our district has a history of adapting to make sure that we are offering the best curricula and the best academic programs for our students. And then parents. That's our body. There is a time for parents to come and speak to the board, and I would welcome the parent input through that means or any other means. But it's really with different pieces of information that I would be able to answer that question confidently and knowledgeably.
Mr. Tulin.
I agree with Sarah. This is an issue that you need to wholly look at. You need to look at what the research has shown, what's out there, what are we doing within the district, look at the performance of the children and how they're doing with the current curriculum and how other districts are doing with a newer curriculum, a different curriculum. And then thoughtfully make a decision as to whether or not that needs to change.
Thank you. Mr. Seibert?
You know, I hear everybody in this district talk about how they moved to this district for our schools. And then one of the worst things that happened for our schools was COVID happened, and that was the worst thing for many reasons, not the least of which was that everybody started watching class from home, and all of a sudden everybody was a teacher expert. And that was incredibly unfair to our teachers in this district, in whom I have 100% full faith and confidence. This is not actually an issue for the Board of Education. The Board of Education's jobs and responsibilities are policy making, governance, and fiscal oversight. We have teacher experts, we have curriculum experts, we have an assistant superintendent for curriculum, and we have subject matter experts in our buildings. And it is their job and responsibility to bring to us changes that need to be made to accommodate what the current required standards are, to teach to those standards, and to teach, frankly, beyond those standards, as we do regularly at FM. We support what they bring to us, and I will always continue to support that.
Thank you. The next question, beginning with Ms. Fosinas, is do you favor term limits for the school board? And if so, what's the magic number?
Numbers is my game, but I don't think I have a magic number for the school board. I think everybody kind of will work through everyone should work through their term and know when they feel that they're not making the impact that they want on the school board. But I don't think I would do a term limit.
Ms. McKee?
So I believe that, all politicians, not just our school board, should face term limits, right? I don't think that anybody intended our government to have politicians for life or even people on our school boards for life. I think 2 to 3 terms is about what any politician should serve, especially on a school board, because by serving only 2 to 3 terms, you're constantly getting influx of new candidates. You're getting people who are honestly in the thick of it with their kids. And you're also getting new perspectives from educators who just left the system. We have 2 former teachers from FM on our school board. So I'd like to see 2 educators from FM that just left replace those 2 at some point. So I believe that 2 to 3 years is about what I would say.
Okay. Ms. Mims?
The longest serving board member. This is a good question for me, I suppose. I don't favor term limits. I think it's up to voters to decide when people leave their office. We're lucky this year that there are 8 people who are interested in serving on our board. That has not always been the case. There are a number of years, I know 2 times, I think when Dan and I ran, when there were just 3 candidates. So the voters did not have choice. So it's really important. Experience is important. I'm really honored that this year was recognized by the CNY School Board Association as a board member of achievement, and that was based on the knowledge that I have built as a board member. I reach out to our constituents and I tell them what I have done, and I tell them what I would like to do. And if they would like to see something different, then they will vote me off the Board of Education. But right now, I'm still very passionate about this. Some nights are, some periods are a little crazy being on the board, but it is still the work that brings me absolute joy and a feeling of service to my community.
Thank you. Ms. Bersani?
So having 5 minutes to think about this, I'm not in favor of term limits for the Board of Education. I think that if you look around neighboring school districts that are struggling to get people to run to be on the board, we are so fortunate. I am so thankful to be in a community that has such a strong focus on education. I am fortunate to be here with people who want to hear what those candidates have to say. That's not how it is everywhere. And that's not how it is all the time. So I think that sums it up for me.
Thank you. Ms. Pinsky?
I'm not in favor of imposing board limits on number of service years for Board of Education members. To me, that's what an election is for. That's what we do every 3 years with Board of Ed candidates. We decide if we want to continue having someone represent our district on the board, and we turn out in favor of the candidates that we choose to, and we talk to our friends and we encourage them, and we hope that everyone gets involved. And I think that's a great process. I don't know that we have to impose limits, as others have said. That we're fortunate that we have experience, and to me, I would hate to set an arbitrary limit, because who decides what limit it is? Is it 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms? That's not for me to say. That's for the voters to say on Election Day.
Mr. Tulin?
I do not favor term limits. I believe that elections are term limits. I believe that we have a responsibility that if we don't like the people who are serving us, and that's what we are doing, we're asking to serve you. If you don't want us to serve any longer, it's the responsibility of the voters to go out and let us know that, because we're just offering you our service. We're offering standing before you with it as a job applicant. And so we're trying to get this volunteer job from you. And if you don't want one of us or all of us or some of us at some point in time in our service, that is your civic obligation to let us know that.
Mr. Seidberg?
I don't believe in statutory term limits for this extremely high-paying job. But I do believe in relevant reality and perspective to those who serve in this position. And by that, I mean that I think that it is very important for those serving on this board to have meaningful current connections in the district so that you're in touch with what is happening on a day-to-day basis within a relative period of recency to what is happening in our elementary schools, what is happening in our middle schools, and what is happening in our high school. And I think that everybody can draw that own line in their own life with their own families to whether they still have those connections or not.
Thank you. Mr. Goodwin?
In general principle, I am in favor of term limits. I think it's something that, my undergrads in U.S. history, they were in place for a reason, and Generally speaking, I am in favor of them. I think it's something that needs to be decided democratically, whether or not we're going to do that, and what those limits are also need to be decided democratically. I completely appreciate the concern that there might not always be people interested in running for these offices, and that is a reality. But too long in one situation can lead to a jaded perspective and kind of losing track of why you were there in the first place. And I think term limits help to limit that. That is certainly not true for everyone, but it prevents problems.
Thank you. The next question, beginning with Mr. McKee, is what timetable and funding should be targeted for the electrification of the bus fleet and an increase in the use of renewable energies?
Again, this is it's not an easy question. I know that we did a very extensive electric bus study, but those are purely electric buses. We haven't looked at hydrogen fuel buses, which if you look at a lot of the major carriers, they're going with mixed fleets. For their longer routes, they're going with hydrogen fuel. And they're using, for their shorter routes, electric buses. Now, having reviewed the New York State electric bus requirements, we can field either hydrogen fuel buses or we can field electric buses. There is a clean school bus grant through the federal government where we can go get $5 million. And again, the mythos is we can't qualify to that. Chatham, New York, and if you don't know who they are, qualified for that $5 million. They have really big houses and a lot of money. So again, we can go there to start, and then by initiating a development corporation, we could probably pull our resources with other school districts to field these buses.
Thank you, Ms. Mims.
Well, the state has a time frame that they have imposed on school districts for the implementation of electric school buses. But there's a lot of advocacy that needs to take place on the behalf of districts because, quite simply, it's not going to be as easy as the state has laid it out. Their time frame for doing this is not workable for school districts. We have to consider, first and foremost, the safety of our students. And the electric buses right now, the infrastructure that would need to be built to have chargers in place for safety for our children when they go on field trips. They're traveling, where are they going to charge these buses? If we have electric buses and we're going to another district that does not have electric buses, what's going to happen there? I think we need to apply for every source of funding that is available to us, and we do that. We do look at every grant that comes up, and a lot of times because we're not considered a high needs district, we aren't able to apply for those. But if there is funding, we certainly are not going to leave money on the table.
Thank you, Ms. Persani.
You just said Ms. Persani. No, that's okay. So the timetable and funding for electrical buses, as someone who works in higher education in the state of New York, this is a mandate that I am familiar with, this style. Sometimes good intentions are one thing, and the availability or the ability to put those good intentions into motion takes a little bit more in the background. At the budget meetings that happened last week, I think this was a topic. And I don't think there's an easy solution to this. I don't know that it's a reasonable dictate or mandate by the state, but I think that this is going to need to be a focus of a lot of study and a lot of energy.
Thank you, Ms. Pinsky.
So to borrow Mr. Seidberg's sentiment from an earlier question, this is definitely one of those issues where emotion and practicality collide. So as a district, we need to embrace sustainability, and certainly our fleet is a top concern. However, as others have stated, including Ms. Mims and Ms. Persani, There are real practical reasons why implementing this on a fast timeline doesn't make sense for a district. It's not possible. If you had the ability to hear Mr. Corbin's presentation about the budget and the continued use of diesel buses, you would understand the budget, the charging, the cost, the facilities, the upgrades necessary to implement it in the short term are beyond what we can adapt to. We're better off taking a little bit more time and putting a practical, affordable, feasible plan in place before we move to electric or other busings.
Mr. Toole.
So, when I was in the Navy, we spent a great deal of time looking at how different variants of items reacted in terms of maintenance costs and being able to sustain the availability of those items. We would have two different variants of buses in this area in which we wouldn't have, as Ms. Mims pointed out, the infrastructure. Other places, not just here, but then we would have to maintain that infrastructure, the expense of maintaining two sets of infrastructure that we're not yet fiscally prepared to maintain. That said, there are folks, they're early adopters of technologies. It's just not prudent right now for this district to become an early adopter of this technology.
Mr. Cyber?
I hope that whoever posed this question and anyone else interested in it would take some time to go back and listen to our board meeting from last night in this very room, where we talked about this for quite a long time and much more than 60 seconds. This district has done an incredible amount of work on researching this issue and trying to move it forward as best and practically as we can. The reality is that we have neither the space nor the funding today to electrify our fleet today. The total proposed cost or projected cost of electrifying our fleet currently in today's dollars is $40 million. We do not have that today. We don't have the place to put them along with the required chargers. That said, we continue to look at them and the feasibility of them. As more are produced, as the costs hopefully come down, this is simple supply and demand economics. The costs currently are much, much higher than diesel. I will switch for just a few seconds to the district message instead of mine. I want to be very clear that if for anybody voting no on the bus proposition, that does not mean we will be buying electric buses this year. It means we will continue to keep older, less efficient, less safe buses on the roads, and we do not want our students in older, unsafe buses.
Mr. Goodwin?
What they said, yes, it's really complicated. It's an onerous mandate, and it sounds great when you can sign a bill that says we're cleaning up the air in New York State. It's really hard when you live in a place with incredibly clean air and you're being told to make it cleaner. I wish there was an easy solution. I wish the new Tesla facility there could just start, we could just take the buses there and plug them in, but that's not the way it works. There isn't an easy solution. There just isn't. And this is something that I completely agree with everyone else on the board. Like, it's tough, and we need to be, what I will stress though is we need to be as efficient as we possibly can with the funds that we have. We need to go after every single grant dollar that's available, every single grant dollar. We need to be careful with what we spend getting up to that, because this is the mandate. This is where we have to go. So we just have to figure out how to get there.
As I've said before, I don't feel that I have the expertise in this whole discussion about what to do with our buses. I would support that the FM district is proceeding with a plan to look at how it will impact our students, how it impacts our bottom line, how it impacts all of our families. So I guess that's me saying I would never say that I'm an expert on this, and I wouldn't be giving you a very good answer. So that's
Thank you.
That's about all I have to say. Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. McKee, I'm going to ask you to begin our 8 closing statements. Feel free to try to address any topics that you feel very strongly about that were not covered in these limited set of questions. You have each 1 minute. Thank you.
So I wasn't expecting to go first, but anyway, that's what I get for showing up late. So, as a solution architect for IBM, I understand the importance of collaboration. When we pull diverse teams together to solve a problem, they have to have diverse requirements. And the school board should reflect those things. We should have teachers on it. We should have legal professionals. We should have people who understand facilities. We can't have a school board that is just, all one group of people. We have a huge amount of diverse problems, and we need diversity to solve those problems. Last, one of the things that the board talked about last night was artificial intelligence. And we have no expertise on the board that is brought to that. I work at IBM, and we literally do this every day. We solve GPT's problems. We solve Microsoft Pilot's problems. And we understand how to govern artificial intelligence to be used effectively, efficiently, and responsibly.
Thank you. Ms. Fosinas. Yep, we're going that way. Yep.
My reason for coming to the board, coming and as a former teacher, as a retired teacher, as someone that works with students in a different capacity, that works with community members, is to be more collaborative and to bring my expertise, if it helps, in developing plans to move this district forward. I think we have to always remember that our students are at the center, that not every student is the same. Not every student has the same needs. Not every teacher has the same needs. So we need to look at all of those needs and come up with plans that will best use our facilities, best use our finances, best use our staff in order to meet the goals that we set as a district.
Yeah, Mr. Goodwin.
Through this process, I've been able to meet a lot of stakeholders in this district. And a common theme that keeps coming up is they're just not being heard. They're not being listened to. They're trying through the conventional channels, and the messages aren't being received the way that they need to be received. I spoke earlier about leaky roofs. There was an incident at the high school that I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, are familiar with. And I asked, was that reported? And they said many, many times. Again, I am a landlord. I own property in 3 different states. If there's a leaky roof in my house in California and I am here, I need to call somebody immediately and get someone there to fix it. It's unacceptable that these complaints that are ultimately health and safety concerns are being ignored. I will make myself available for those comments. You're not always going to see me at the grocery store, so I'll find a way that you can talk to me as if you did. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seibert.
I'm grateful, as some have mentioned, that there's so much interest this year in serving on this board. This community has always been very involved in our school district, and I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful for the confidence that this community has placed in me for the last 6 years to serve on this board, and I would greatly appreciate the ability to do that and to continue with some projects that we've been very, very deeply involved with. I made a pledge when I first ran for the board that every decision that I made would be grounded first in what was in the best interest of the students, second, what's in the best interest of our teachers, and third, what's in the best fiscal interest of our community. That's what I've done for the last 6 years. That's what I will always continue to do on this board. So if given the opportunity again, I would greatly appreciate that. We'll remind everybody there's 2 Daniels on the ballot this year. Mine is the second one, not the first one. But thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you to the HSAs.
He's the first one.
Mr. Tulin.
Go ahead, second Daniel.
Mr. Tulin.
First, Daniel, thank you very much. I have a diverse set of experiences, whether it's building management, physical security of buildings and personnel, management of budgets, competencies, I've done oversight as a compliance officer for the Navy that allow me to address the wide set of issues and responsibilities that the board must address. Board members need to provide oversight in the same manner that corporate boards provide oversight to company policy, budgets, and leadership. In order to faithfully fulfill those roles, the school board members must listen to the education community and advocate for students always. So one of the things about me tonight that was slightly disparaged is my passion. Passion is why I'm here, and maybe this board needs a little more passion.
Yeah. Ms. Pinsky?
I promise you, I wrote the sentence before you said that. I'm a passionate advocate for kids, and my personal and professional experience will strengthen our board. A few things I will do as a board member. I will maintain a fiscally responsible budget. We will forecast, not just this year to preserve programs and staffing, but into the future. I'll increase board communications and transparency. My background is communications. I care passionately about it. We'll continue our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, which was really not mentioned much tonight, but is so incredibly important to all of our families. Continue to invest in our facilities and find ways to do it, despite the fact that we have to maintain a budget. Prioritize student and teacher mental health. We can't survive as a district if we don't address those issues. And finally, strengthen special education and services. Our own family just went through the process of obtaining a 504 plan. For us, it was a relatively smooth process, but for others in the district, it hasn't been. We need to find structural or procedural or budgetary reasons and address them, and I will do that.
Thank you. Ms. Persani?
Excuse me. So I'm going to end the way I started. I am honored to be sitting in front of you today. It means so much to me that you care so much about what's happening in our school district to come out in a torrential downpour and listen to what my 7 new friends and I have to say. I have the knowledge, skills, abilities, and experiences to be a successful collaborator and team member on the board. I care deeply about our community and making sure that all members of our community are heard and that their concerns are addressed. I think that meeting our students, our faculty, our staff, and our parents, all our community members, where they're at, is really foundational, and that's a good place, I think, to start.
Thank you. Ms. Mims?
One of the things I'm most excited about right now as a board member are the changes that are happening in New York State to graduation requirements. This is going to open the door for so much change in our schools, positive change that will address the needs of many of our students. The changes to the diploma requirements will allow us to offer different paths to graduations for our students. We can look at more personalized learning for our students. I just can't even imagine what it's going to look like once we're able to implement changes to our study at the high school, our students' path at the high school, once we have those guidelines from state ed. I became an educator because I was a board member. Sometimes it's usually the other way around, but I went into teaching because of what I saw sitting at the table in FM. That's what inspired me to become a teacher, and I'm very passionate. Is where we keep using a lot. I go into my classroom every day, and I'm excited to be there. I'm a personalized learning fellow in my district. I'm a diversity, equity, and belonging lead. This is my life. Education is my professional life, and I'm very proud, and I thank everyone in this district for the opportunity to serve you.
Thank you. That concludes the candidate forum. I wanted to thank on behalf of the HSA and the League of Women Voters all the candidates for their passion and their knowledge and enthusiasm, and also to thank the audience for being here tonight. Little gatherings like this are, as they say, the kernel on the corn cob, on the plant, on the farm that is the mess of and wonder of American democracy. So it's great that you're all here. It's really nice to see that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jamie, thank you very much for coming in at literally the 11th hour. Thank you so much. We appreciate your expertise and the partnership with the League of Women Voters. So thank you all again on behalf of the HSAs for all the schools and on behalf of the FM community. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And we will look for how to post the recording. This is new for us. This is only our first time recording it. So just be on the lookout and then spread the word. I know social media is the easiest way for us to post. We don't quite have a channel like the Board of Education does, which is hosted by the district. The HSAs are separate, so we'll try to figure that out. And then once it's out there, you can spread the word. But stay tuned. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.